Today, bro, I'm just gonna start off straight away by saying, yeah, that this video is not for the faint-hearted, innit? So anyone who wants to pretend that everything's rosy and dandy and Arsenal don't have no issues right now, you get me, and everything's fine and trust the process and all of this kind of stuff, then yeah, man, this video is probably not gonna be for you. So I'm just gonna start off by saying that that's first and foremost. I've wrote down a few things that I really want to talk about today. As you can see from the thumbnail of the video, our season is hanging by a thread, people, man. Our season is hanging by a thread. Let's just be honest. I'm gonna start off by doing a little small recap of the game yesterday. And boy, if you did watch my watch along, then you will know how I was feeling at the time. Now that I've had a night's rest and the next day, to be honest with you, nothing's changed. Nothing's changed, man. Normally after a bad result, the next day I wake up, do you know what I mean? I feel a little bit more calm. I feel more chill. I can evaluate a game properly and stuff like that. But even the thought of that game yesterday winds me up. The thought of how the season's panned out winds me up. The thought of the negligence during the January transfer window winds me up. The thought of the lack of awareness and ambition by certain people, which we will go into at this football club, winds me up. So there's a lot of things that we do have to discuss today. I thought I'll go live today. Why not, for a change? Not always watch alongs, do you know what I'm saying? We'll do something different now and then. And I feel like it was needed. Now, we do have a few positive things that we will be talking about. So there is some positives. As you can see in the thumbnail with the director of football talk, we say positives. We don't really know, innit? Because it's pretty much he say, she say right now. We don't, because in life, talk is cheap, man. Talk is cheap, people. So people can say the right things. People can pretend, talk, say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But at the end of the day, actions speak louder than words, man. So yeah, as much as there is positives that do come with this new director of football, I'm going to talk about a few things which have happened in the past and scars that have happened in the past with this football club when it comes to directors of football who have had experience as well. So yeah, we're going to go through that as well. Now, in terms of a little recap of yesterday's game against Manchester United, I've watched it over again. I've seen all the highlights again, because obviously during the 90 minutes when you're first watching it, you miss a few things and it's in the heat of the moment and things like that. And to be honest with you, the thing that struck me the most, and it was so obvious, and you don't see it as much when you're watching the game live because you're just into the game so much and it's all, like I said, in the heat of the moment. But the thing that hit me the most was the lack of effort. It was almost like acceptance. Do you know what I'm saying? It was like in the press conference, you've got the manager coming out talking about, over my dead body we'll give up on the title and da da da. And we know, people, this ain't me saying that we were gonna win the title, or I thought that we were gonna come back and win the title or anything like that. It wasn't that. But what I'm trying to say is, you're saying one thing, but then your actions are the complete opposite. What I saw yesterday was a bunch of players who have checked out. a bunch of players they're on the beach, a bunch of players who feel like it's done, who feel like they don't need to put 100% into every tackle, into every, and that's just not good enough, man. Let's just be honest, people. I know people want to act like, oh, don't worry, we go again next year, and there's always an excuse, and there's always a reason, and people are going to turn around and blame injuries. They're going to turn around and blame referees. And listen, at the end of the day, you sometimes you make your own luck. You make your own luck in sports in general. And yes, we've had a few bad decisions. Every team's had bad decisions. The refereeing standard in the Premier League is poor anyway, so we know this. Pando, it's about, if you see the thumbnail of the video, it's just about our season in general, man. It's about our season in general. I'm gonna break down a lot of things that I wanted to talk about. I needed to get a few things off my chest. It's about how our season's panned out, going forward, what I think needs to happen, and what should happen. It should have happened before, but now even more so. And yeah, just kind of like a breakdown of the whole situation. So for me, in terms of the game yesterday, the players were just checked out. The players were checked out. You can see it. It's so obvious. They know the title's done. They've given up. They basically handed it over to Liverpool. But what my issue is with the game yesterday, right? Forget about the title. Forget about where you are in the league. Forget about where they are in the league. Forget about all of that. Historically, that football match means something to the supporters. So for the players to go out and perform in a way of them being on the beach is not acceptable, regardless of the context, regardless of the title's gone. Even if we win, it doesn't make a difference. Liverpool's won the league anyway. Regardless of all of these things, it's not acceptable for players to go out on that pitch and play in such a rivalry, in a manner of like acceptance, almost just half-hearted about everything, just passing the ball around side to side. And for me, it's sad to see, man. It's sad to see, bro, because like I've explained many times, and for those who follow my channel and they watch my watch-alongs and stuff like that, they know that obviously there's a generation of supporters who have grown up on nothing but FA Cups and stuff like that. For me personally, I grew up on winning, man. I grew up on when Arsenal was competing for major honours all the time, won Premier Leagues. Do you know what I'm saying? Got to Champions League final in 2006. That's what I grew up on, man. I grew up on players that used to fight regardless of the situation, regardless of the outcome in the league, regardless of the outcome in a cup competition. The commitment and the hunger was always the same. And I feel like that's died out now with this team, man. And yeah, the reason I've put in the thumbnail is season hanging by a thread is because all of our eggs seem to have gone into the Champions League basket now. And if you're asking me to be honest about the situation, of course I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that we can beat whoever we get in the next round, and then we go through it and we win the Champions League. That's a dream. But the reality of the situation is, people, this ownership has left us short, and they have left us short for many, many years now. This is not a new thing. This is not something that's just rose this season to the front, where we can see like all the issues and stuff like that. We've known for years now that we needed to bolster this attack. We've known for years now that we should have got cover for Bukayo Saka in case he ends up getting injured. We've known for years now the lack of firepower up front. So this isn't a new thing where this season we've had so many injuries, we're so unlucky, and then we haven't got the depth. Like, this isn't new. We knew this information already. So for me, people, that just comes down to the ownership. And that's where I wanted to go next. I wanted to speak about these owners, people. And like I've said, this is not for those of you who are just want to be positive all the time and you feel like you shouldn't speak negatively about the club or the way that it's run, or you shouldn't ever think anything bad of Arsenal, and they can't. And there is supporters like that. They feel like the club can't do any wrong, and that's up to you. If you want to support the club in that way, if you want to support the club in a way where you feel like everything's rosy and dandy, and that's just how you are as a person, then that's up to you. But for me, personally, that's not how I do things. I'd like to see myself as a realistic person. And from the minute these owners have taken over this football club, that's when our downfall started. And you can go back and check the time scale from when they came into this football club till now. The downfall started. That was under the Cronkies. What's going on, Mohammed, man? So that was under the Cronkies, right? So for me, you ask yourself, you're like, for example, let's go recently. Let's not go as far back as when the Cronkies took over and when we left Highbury and we went to the Emirates and stuff like that. Let's just talk about recent. So recently, the most recent window that we had in January, for example, we all know as supporters, people from the outside who don't support Arsenal, who support different football clubs, they all knew. So neutrals all knew. People within the club were all aware. Players, I'm sure, were aware. Where was the ambition? I'm not talking about quality of player. I'm not talking about specific signings. I'm not saying to buy certain individuals, or I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about where was the ambition? So people need to pay attention to these kind of things. Everyone says, oh, we should have got, like, if we would have bought, for example, if we would have bought, I don't know, like a random striker in January and not bought Ollie Watkins, for example, just as a name, yeah? People would have said, oh, lack of ambition because they didn't go and purchase a big name. They didn't want to risk it, For me, there was zero ambition because they didn't get anyone. That's where my problem is. The actual profile of the player and the player himself, whoever it would have been, whatever, innit? I don't know. Like, if it could have been a random person who could have went on to do really good. It could have been a really big name who went on to do really bad. I don't know. We don't know. That's all. No, it's not here nor there. Like, at the end of the day, we can't predict the future, so we don't know. My issue is there was no ambition shown. We didn't even try to get a forward. We didn't even attempt to pursue an attacker to bolster our options, knowing that we had all the injuries and missing personnel that we did. At that time, let me bring your mind back. At that time, when it was January, we were in the Carabao Cup. We were in the League Cup. So we were in the FA Cup, sorry. We were in the League Cup. We were still in the title race. Those are three things right there that we were still fighting for at that period. YT Kimbo says, where do you live in England? I live in London, bro. So those were three things that we were still fighting for. Now, it's not a coincidence that all of a sudden the January transfer window finished. We didn't buy anyone. We showed a lack of ambition, and then now we find ourselves in a situation a month and a few days later where we're dumped out of the League Cup, we're dumped out of the FA Cup, and we're out of the title race. So for me, it all falls down to the same individuals again, and that is the ownership. That is the Cronkies. These owners have, since they've come into this football club, let's just be honest. I don't want to start going back into history. I could do that all day and start talking about all the messed up stuff they've done since they've taken over this club. But they have been nothing but incompetent, and they have started this club's downfall. Now, people don't like to admit it. People don't like to speak about it because they say, oh, we're competing with. Do not let stuff fool you, people. This season, we are not in a title race. This is not a title race. We were never in a title race. We did not have the firepower to be in a title race. We are 15 points behind Liverpool, people. We are 15 points behind Liverpool, and we are in March. The League Cup final has not even been played yet, and we are 15 points behind. This is not it's not a title race. That's not a title race, people. The ownership is completely to blame. It's not all their fault. I'd say it's 80% their fault, 20% Arteta's fault. The players, I can't really go at the players, to be honest, because they've been left, they're hung out to dry. Let's just be honest. They're hung out to dry. We're relying on... There's only so much I can say about Moreno and criticize him. What's going on, Yodi? There's only so much I can say about a player like Moreno because he's playing out of position up front when he's a midfielder. So me as a supporter, if I sit there and all the time criticize Moreno, he's not a striker. It's not his fault. You cannot blame a player for playing out of position because he's forced to play out of position due to the club's incompetence, due to the owner's incompetence, due to the club's lack of ambition. He's been put in a situation, for example, and I don't think he's good enough as a midfielder anyway, but that's besides the point. If we're talking in regards to criticizing his performances right now, then what can you really say? If you put a goalkeeper in midfield and then you're asked to analyze his performance and all these things, how can you really, do you know what I mean? You can't really criticize it like that. So for me, it's just down to the ownership. And then I did say it's 20% on Arteta. And the reason I say that is because I feel like right now, I don't know if anyone agrees with me. Let me know in the comments, and let me know if you're watching a video on playback. Let me know how you feel about this. But watching Arsenal now with Arteta, I feel like he's still scarred from 2 years ago. And the reason I say that is, if you look at Arsenal, the way we were playing football 2 years ago, right? In the 2021, 2022 season? Or 2022-23 season, I don't know which one. But anyway, that season, 2 years ago, right? Arsenal were playing attacking, free-flowing, just all guns blazing. And then I feel like because it didn't work, I feel like he completely flicked the switch. And then last season, we managed to eventually find the right balance towards the second half of the season between defending well and attacking well. And then that didn't work, and we finished 2 points away from Liverpool. And then this season, I feel like because he's been so, he's so hurt from the past 2 years, I feel like he's overthinking it way too much. And I feel like the shackles are on a lot of these players. And I've said this many times during my watch-alongs. I feel like the shackles are on a lot of these players. I feel like the manager's overthinking it. He's still hurt from 2 years ago, from not being able to win the league through playing that style of play that we had previously. And I feel like now he's gone completely away from what brought us into contention for titles, and he's done a complete 360 and he's doing the complete opposite. That's why you're seeing the type of football and the defensive approach and the almost, I think Thierry Henry said it in a show when it was him and Mika Richards and them lot, and he said Arteta seems like he's almost playing not to lose. He's not playing to win. What he means by that is he'll play not to lose, and then if we don't lose, he'll do something like he did yesterday, like he's done in every single interview after the game. He comes out and he talks about, we controlled the game, we had moments here, there, this and that, and then it was players are evolving, and he kind of like talks in like a completely different language. I don't know what the hell he's talking about half the time. But his main point is we controlled the game, right? So I feel like he's always trying to set himself up to give himself an excuse, if it makes sense. That's what he's trying to do. Because if he doesn't lose the game and then we go on to draw the game, he'll say, oh, we controlled the game. Look at the stats. Look at the XG. Look at the AB. Look at the ZF. Like, he'll start talking about all these things, which are really and truly irrelevant. Whereas if we win the game, he'll turn around and it's a win-win situation for him. So he'll play the game not to lose. He'll play the game not to lose rather than playing it to win. Whereas 2 seasons ago, we were playing football games to win. We were coming out in the first 20 minutes, like 50% of our games were won. Oh, excuse me. In the first 20 minutes of games, 2 years ago, 50% of our games were won. So he's completely changed his style of play. And for me, it's evident that he's scarred from 2 years ago, what happened 2 years ago. And I feel like he just needs to stop overthinking the whole situation. With Mikel Arteta, that's what I think it is. I think he needs to stop overthinking the whole situation. I feel like he's doing too much. I feel like he just needs to go back to what brought you here. What brought you to a situation where you were competing for a title 2 years ago was your attacking football and allow the defenders to defend. Believe in your defenders. I feel like he's too rigid with his system where he needs the wingers to track back. He needs allow the defenders to defend. We're in a position now where I can sit here and comfortably say we have one of the best defenses in Europe. Simple as that. You've got Gabriel, you've got Saliba, you've got Timber, you've got whoever the hell you want out of the 7 left backs that you've bought. You've got so many defensive options. You've got Ben White, you've got one of the top keepers in the Premier League. Allow the defenders to defend. And then in front of them, you've got one of the better ball winners in Europe in Declan Rice. Allow them to defend. You don't need the whole team to come back as a unit every single time we're defending. Because what that does is when we then get the ball, we cannot transition. We can't transition quick. So that's why you rarely see Arsenal. You rarely see Arsenal score counter-attacking goals. The reason for that is because he expects every single player to come back and defend as a unit. So he doesn't really trust his defenders to defend in individual battles. And he's a manager. It surprises me because Arteta's a manager that always talks about duels and winning duels. And he even signed someone in Moreno because of that whole concept. And he doesn't allow them to get into situations where they're doing one-on-one defending and they're taking a risk. Because if you allow that situation to happen and unfold, 90% of the time I'm backing Gabriel and Saliba to win in a one-on-one defensive duel against any attacker in the league. So what he has to do is let them be free. Stop coaching to a point where when we're winning the ball back, everyone's back, so we can't even transition. We can't counter attack. We're not quick. We're not the football's not like we're not zipping the ball about. It's all too slow. And when you watch Arsenal, the reason it's too slow is because it's too overcoached. And that's my thoughts on the way that his style of play has kind of almost changed over the years. And that's my reasons for it. That's the only thing that I can put it down to, is the fact that he was scarred 2 years ago. Now, in terms of, people always ask the question, is Arteta the man to get Arsenal Football Club over the line? And that is the $1,000,000 question, people. Is Arteta the man to get Arsenal Football Club over the line? Now, for me, I think this season has stamped it like down for me in my head that Mikel Arteta is not the man to get it over the line. I feel like Mikel Arteta for Arsenal is similar to what Brendan Rodgers was for Liverpool, in a sense of he'll get you competing. He's rebuilt the squad. He's done a good job in terms of rebuilding the squad, and we were never anywhere near where we are now from when he took over. The players that we had, the squad we had, the from everything, we were nowhere near the level we are now. However, in order to get over that finish line, I do not believe Arteta is the man. I do not believe he is the man. I believe he will go on to be a top coach. I do think Arteta will go on to be a top manager, and he will go on to win things, and he will go on to achieve a lot of things in his managerial career. But I feel like as of right now, if you was to ask me just straight up, flat out, do you think he's the man to get you over the line? I don't think he is. Personally, I don't think he is. Has he been put in a situation where, from, like I said, because I look at things from the top, innit? I look at the ownership. For me, it's all about the ownership. I've always said this. I've always remained. That's always been my stance on it. It all comes down from the ownership. It all stems from them. So the buck always lands at Kroenke's door because of the lack of ambition, incompetence, and they're the reason that the downfall started. If you actually go back and look at when they took over the club, like I mentioned earlier in the video. But I don't think Arteta is the man for the job in order to take us over the line, due to the fact that he's had 3 shots at the title now. And because the first title race that we done wasn't expected and he didn't see it, didn't work, I feel like he's just thrown all that got us to the position that we got to. I feel like he threw it out the window, man, and he's gone back to some slow, lethargic football because he's trying to overcoach and get everyone to come back in defend, and we can't even transition and stuff like that. So yeah, man, that just sums that up. I don't want to dive too deep into the whole Mikel Arteta conversation because I feel like it's pointless anyway. To be honest, I feel like it's a pointless conversation to have because they're not going to get rid of him. They're not going to get rid of him. He's going to be here next season. So we just have to hope that, again, come the summer window, they do the right things and put us in a position where we can actually win. And that brings me on to my next point, people. And my next point, as you can see from the thumbnail in the video, this is the bit of positive news. It's not all doom and gloom, people. Don't worry. The whole live is not going to be doom and gloom. But the man that has been chosen to be the new director of football, it looks like, Andrea Berta. He was at Atletico Madrid, I believe, for 11 years. Now, if you just look at it face value and look at who he's brought in and who he's got rid of and things like that. There is a lot of positives in the move, of course. He's brought in players, especially with the attackers. He's brought in players like Diego Costa, Fernando Torres. I saw that he brought in a lot of players, man. He got Rodri for like, I think it was 20 million euros or something crazy like that. So he's got a very good track record, Berta, as a director of football, and he's seen as one of the best directors of football in world football. So in that sense, it's a very good thing for the football club, and it's something for the fans to be excited about in terms of the future. But he needs to be able to have the freedom to do what he done with Atletico Madrid. He needs to be given that freedom, because as we've all seen with previous directors of football at this football club, some of them, like Mislintat, they have had they've had experience as well. They've had decent reputations in the game, and for some strange reason, they wasn't given the almost like the power to decide and to properly do their job. Because at the end of the day, their job is to go out there, sign players, sell players. That's what they're meant to do. It's not supposed to be the manager that does that. The manager just says, I want this profile of player, or I want a striker or a left winger. Then it's down to the scouting team and the director of football to do the rest. Simple as that. So, yeah, I hope that he's given the reins to be able to do the necessary things in order to move forward and take this club forward, man. And I hope that it's not just talk, because we've had a lot of that over the years at this football club. We've had a lot of it's just empty words and empty promises. And for me, that's not going to do anything. That don't get you anywhere. You can sit there in press conferences and you can sit there and talk in interviews and say all the right things, but at the end of the day, if your actions are something else, then that's all that really matters. Now, it's come out recently it's come out that there's a 7 striker list. So there's seven different targets that Arsenal are going to look at for the summer window in terms of a striker, an out-and-out striker. Now, I believe that list is, I've written it down here. It's Isak from Newcastle, Ollie Watkins, Jonathan David, Samu Omaridion from FC Porto, Lautaro Martinez, Delap, and Sesko. Get me one of them. I'm not. If you was to ask me who's on the top of my list out of them, of course it's gonna be Isak. That's the dream signing for me. I've always said it for a whole year and a half now. I've been saying we should get Isak. We should get Isak. I even wanted Isak before he went to Newcastle, but we didn't get him. So for me, of course, on the top of that list, out of them players, the top would be Isak. He would be the striker that I would go for. However, if we can't get Isak, get me someone. Get me one of them. They're saying there's a seven striker list and short list and all these things. That's all well and good, but you need to go out there and get one of them. So whether it's a Isak, whether it's a Watkins, whether it's a Jonathan David or Meridian, Delap, Lautaro, Sesko, whoever it may be, I need to see Andrea Berta go out and get that done. And he's got a massive job on his hands as well. He's coming in a period where he basically needs to revamp the whole attack. Let's just be honest. He needs to revamp the whole attack because he needs to get us a left-sided forward as well, whether it be a left winger, some sort of left-sided attacker, maybe another attacker for cover. So he's got a massive job on his hands this summer. And he's set to be starting the job this week, I believe, according to reports and David Ornstein and all these other sources and stuff like that. So, yeah, man, let's see what he can do in regards to the attacking position. And the final thing I wanted to say was just literally about the mentality. It needs to change from top to bottom. From the Cronkies. The Cronkies, for me, like I've said so many times, they take the most blame for all of it. It's an 80-20 split in terms of Cronkies and the management, because when they did take over this football club, it wasn't this. So they've allowed it to get to this stage. So they caused this mess. They have to get us out of this mess. But anyways, people, man, I just wanted to do a little live just to get these things off my chest, man. I wanted to talk about a recap of the game yesterday, just the Cronkies in general, whether Arteta was the man to get us over the line. We also discussed the style of play and why it changed. That action needs to be taken as opposed to just talk, and the 7 striker list that we're being told about, the same way we're always told about the war chests and things like that, is the same way we're being told now about this 7 striker list. I'm tired of the talking, man. I'm tired of the talking. Just go out there and get the business done, man. I'm at that stage now where just talk is cheap, man. You can have management, you can have owners telling fans to get excited and all these different things, but at the end of the day, if you're not giving them reason to be, then you're gonna have a lot of fans that are like me, that are not very optimistic about the way that things are going. You're also gonna have fans that, regardless of the situation, they're always gonna look at things from a positive outlook. And if that's the type of supporters that you want to listen to, then like I've said, this channel, I don't do that, man. I can't pretend. I'm not that type of person. I can't pretend that I'm happy with the way the club's being run. I can't pretend that I'm happy with the direction that these owners have been taking us since they've taken over this football club. I can't pretend that I'm happy with the decisions that Arteta has made. I can't pretend that I'm happy with the way the season's panned out, the way last season was, the way the season before that was. I can't pretend that I'm happy about the transfer market that we had in the summer. I can't pretend that I'm happy about the transfer market that we had in January. And I can't pretend that I'm happy about the situation at Arsenal. But with that being said, yeah, people, man, we'll leave it there. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let me know if you disagree with anything that I've said. Let me know if you agree with anything that I've said. And make sure that you smash the like and subscribe button. Of course, support your boy. You know what I'm saying? Liking the video helps with the algorithm, helps grow the community, helps grow the channel. And it's always much appreciated. And yeah, tomorrow we have a watch along for the Champions League game. Of course, we're going to be doing the Liverpool against Paris Saint-Germain Champions League game watch along. And yeah, man, let's just hope that things do change going forward. Blessings, people, man. I'll leave you there. I just had to get this stuff off my chest, man. I actually feel a lot better. This is almost like therapy. So yeah, man, blessings, people.